Welcome to Heart Speak Podcast, episode 299, Engaging Fully with Our Universal Life. Well, hello there, wherever you're in the world. It's good to be back with you, especially on this wonderful day, the solstice. And I've just come back from Japan, where I met many wonderful friends and had the opportunity to speak with other doctors, other complementary practitioners on what does it mean to be holistically healthy? What does it mean to be whole? And this really brought to mind the understanding of that the universe lives within us, that it's not something out there, but that when I tap into that universal me, I'm tapping into that wholeness that exists on so many levels, most of which I might see in my outer world, but my soul is constantly talking to, what is my universal destiny? What does it mean to live a universal life? And this really is relevant at this time with the solstice, because the word solstice means sun standing still. And it's said to do that over almost an 11-day period. So it's not just a one-day event. So we get the chance when the sun seems to stand still before turning to really go deeper. It's almost like we're no longer being impressed only by the sun's rays or even our own inner sun, the soul's rays. But now we can tap into the energy of the galaxy, of the universe, and say, what are the rays of light that are shining out of me from the universe? And there's so much going on at this time, because at the same time we have Venus and Mercury have moved into Cancer. And on the solstice, the sun moves into Cancer. And then one day later, we have a full moon in Capricorn. But with so much movement between Cancer, Capricorn, they're all relatively square to this wonderful Neptune in Pisces that I talk about. So Neptune in Pisces is this unlimited universal oneness. Square to that means, once again, how do I engage with this energy? Not just imagine it, but actually be part of it. And I think that Cancer very much is talking about home, family, foundations. Capricorn, that full moon in Capricorn on the 21st, is talking about the goals that we lead. So it's really saying, if I am born from this universe, if I'm born from the galaxy, if I'm born from my soul or my higher self, then my soul, then what is it I'm hoping to achieve in this world in a Capricorn way? In other words, Cancer is the foundations of the first energy, and Capricorn is seen as the wholeness that occurs after we put that into practice. And what I really want to help you to understand, and I'm trying to understand, is what does it mean to be full of ourselves, to engage fully with life? And when I was in Japan, I went to one of my favorite gardens because of these wonderful rocks and stones that were gathered there by a particular family. But it was also the time where these wonderful lilies, these purples and lilacs and violet lilies, were all in full bloom. And they really looked magnificent, and so many people were there to paint them and to talk about them, to be amongst them. But in my way of looking at life with the nature kingdoms, I felt that these little nature beings within the lilacs and within the irises were saying, look at me, I am full. And it was like, this is what I came here to do. That's all they had to do, which was to shine. And all I had to do was engage with that shining. And I realized that that engagement isn't like, oh, I saw some lovely flowers. It involved me taking that light, taking that energy deep into my heart and having a deep appreciation, a joy of me being with these irises. And I realized that that sometimes is missing. We might talk about something. Oh, I went there, it was really nice. I took pictures of it, and people are constantly now taking pictures. But are you engaging? Are you having that experience where it's almost like you are the irises and the irises are me? And I realized that that engagement is what we came here to do. It's not enough just to have the knowledge. Oh, I know what irises look like. I've got pictures of them. It's like, did I feel changed by my engagement with those irises? Did I feel my consciousness grow because of that engagement? And that's the true meaning of the word consciousness, which isn't to just have a lot of knowledge about something. It's about, did you engage? How were you changed by your experiences? So if I take a few steps back, which is often helpful, I know, is that if we ask, why did God create humans? The answer is often that God was bored, so created humans because it thought it would be very funny. But the fact of the matter is, what our understanding is, God, the creator, created life in order to know itself. And that knowing of itself is not only, oh, I see myself out there, but I've engaged with that which I created in order to gain wisdom and consciousness. You see, consciousness isn't just, as I say, having information. It's like wisdom, it's knowledge in action. And so that consciousness is, how well do I know myself because of my interactions with my creations? Or that which I meet in the world, which I interact with, which in some ways is what I created. And so the Godhead, the creator, said, I will know myself through my creations. And therefore created many different levels around the universe, etc. But one particular energy was created with what we call our three-dimensional world. And this is an extraordinarily unique experience. And again, I hear people say, oh, well, I think I'm being punished by being on in this 3D world. Can't wait to go back. Well, it's not like that. These are all stories that we've been told. So if I say, okay, the universe created the galaxies created the stars created the planets. Okay, there's that line down. It created this world. All right, so Gaia, our planet, created this world that we see. If you want to bring it down through our humanness, you could say, the universal mind created the galactic mind that created the solar mind that created my higher mind. Maybe I am in all of those, and my higher mind is part of that. And then my higher mind created my soul, and then my soul created this experience. What I'm just trying to say is they're not separate. They all live within each other, like bubbles within bubbles, spheres within spheres, like those Russian dolls. And so even though you might say, oh, it's a long way to my universal mind or my universal life, no, it's right here. When we align through our hearts and our minds to the universal heart, the universal mind, we're there. It's instantaneous. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, not only did God, the creator of the universe, want to know itself, but that was passed down to us, that our purpose for being here on earth is to know ourselves. Okay, and what we were given the chance as a universal being, again, don't keep coming back to that we're just this little being. The universal being within me said, okay, I am going to enjoy this three-dimensional world that's being created because it's like the best place in the world, or the best toy shop, or it's a playground. And it wasn't to say, oh, this is the only playground. This is like saying, okay, we've tried other playgrounds, but this one that has length, depth, breadth, time and space seems to be a fabulous place to create. And so it would almost be nice if we could stop calling it a three-dimensional world. It's just a playground. And it has all these different things in this playground, I'm thinking objects, where you can say, oh, I'll go and create that. I'll go and create that. So the opportunities here are immense. And that's why we believe there are millions of different species here at this time, whether they're bacteria, viruses, animals, plants, minerals, because they're all saying, what a great place to go and play. And what we know is that over millions of years, different ET groups have come onto this planet, have entered into different forms that were already here, changed their genetics somewhat, and said, let's play here. And in fact, we know that people like the Anunnaki, the Pleiadians, the Syrians, and many other groups have said, okay, let's go down there and do something different. And they moved or refined the DNA within the structure in order to bring different creative inspirations to life. And you're part of that. You've been here many lives and you've done this. You said, okay, let's go down there again, or down, in, whatever you want to call it. So this fabulous place in which we live, this playground, is a place of creativity. All right, so I'm going to learn about myself by being creative. And the purpose of that creativity, so we are creating in every moment. When people say, oh, I've just learned, I'm just going to create my reality. We've been doing that all the time. So every thought we have creates reality. But the problem is that we are not always intentional about what we're creating. And reading my lovely Dorothy McLean book, she talks about how, or the divas talk about how humans really often are doing things without any idea of why they're doing them. And I totally agree. But they say the irises absolutely knew what they were here to do. The trees absolutely know what they're here to do. The animals, they're doing and living that universal life. We go off at a tangent, don't we? Or we go, oh, I'll do that. It doesn't really matter. But it does matter. Or we keep giving excuses of why we're not going to do it in the first place. Well, I'm never going to do it well enough. Someone's already doing it. I don't know if I can be bothered. And we make all these excuses and never live our life fully like that iris. All we have to do is to turn up. Turn up. And this is a wonderful time at this time of the solstice, at this time of this full moon, to say, am I turning up? So in other words, this Capricorn full moon is saying, are you living in fullness? Another word is integrity, but I think at this time it's more about, is what you've been doing up to now that the best you could do? And again, no judgment about best, fullness. Have you done it fully? And if you've been doing it fully, maybe you need to let the sun, this solstice, dissolve what you've been doing and start something new. So we've got those options. But one of our challenges as humans is that we don't live fully, first of all. So as I say, we make excuses why we're not going to do something. And then once we've done something, we don't always realize that we then have to engage with our creations in order to learn wisdom. In other words, what did I learn from this? How did I grow from this? What am I going to do next? So we call it accountability, but it's not a judgment. It's more like, wow, what a gift. I'm now being able to know myself through my creations, which is what the universe, God, wanted to do. But if we don't have an intention in the first place, in terms of having a focus of what we're going to do, it's often hard to know what we're going to get out of it, because we're like, well, I think it just happened. Now, it's sometimes hard for us to understand that in our life, we have actually created a lot of or everything that we see out in the world that we have an emotional reaction to. Again, emotional reaction means I'm engaging with it. So if I'm having an emotional reaction, there's part of me that is gaining wisdom from that experience, even though it may be painful. The experience itself may have been painful. So that engagement is what I'm talking about. It's about, am I sending my energy? Am I living this idea, this universal idea that's coming through me? I've been inspired to do this. Let's go. Or am I saying, well, I'm not sure if I can. I've got the time, and maybe I'm just not going to be good enough. And it's like, you know, if God or the Creator is speaking to you now and saying, go, this is a great time. And as we're doing that, we are allowing our energy or the universal energy to flow through us and make this happen. And the more we say, okay, that's what I'm going to do, at least have a focus, the more energy will flow through it. But I also know that I meet people who have an idea, great idea, but when they try to speak it to me, what is it, that 30-second elevator discussion, you know, what are you wanting to do? They're a little misty about it. Well, I may do this, I may do that. So when we can clear up our intention, it really helps. Now, this doesn't have to be some earth-shattering idea you have. Maybe it's just to go on a trip, or maybe it's just to go to the shops, or maybe it's just to sit down and do some painting. Sometimes we have to just say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give myself 20 minutes to paint or write every morning. That's an intention. And let spirit work through me. And then when we've had that creation, and I know sometimes it can be very challenging, or that was a difficult situation, but not to run away from it. Maybe after a while, think, what did I learn from that? How did I grow? Because that's the consciousness. That's what builds our consciousness. And that knowingness of interacting with our creations is what goes back to the universe as pure light consciousness. And we are that light, so our light body gets stronger as that happens. And we get closer to the oneness of the universe that lives within us. So just to say one other thing that I have learned, and I was kind of interested to hear that, is the idea that when we were in the Garden of Eden, that Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, that the serpent was actually persuading us possibly to have an experience of free will and diversity versus not eating of the fruit of good and evil. Now, if we change that word good and evil, which never really worked for me anyway, but if Yahweh, the God at that time, was saying to us, okay, you have a choice. You either don't eat of the fruit of free will, and you just go along doing what I suggest you do, you can do that. And then you will know what I know. But if you choose to have free will and you eat of the fruit of diversity, then you are going to be you're going to have creative experiences. But because we want to be very open and have new experiences, you will have amnesia to what has gone before. I kind of like that idea. So either you stay with the known, but it doesn't grow, and you stay with the Yahweh or the God of that time who says, don't eat of this fruit, or you listen to the serpent who is about transformation and creativity and say, okay, I'm willing to let go of all I've known before and have the free will to create. How does that sound? And with that comes the opportunity to create in many different ways. Unfortunately, we don't always understand that it is diversity rather than just duality. So in other words, in your playground, you have many different toys you could play with, but we tend to go, we've been told it's either this or that. And it's not the truth. And again, the divas say to Dorothy McLean, you know, you humans have an extraordinary gift of creativity, and you can create anything within the energy of the universal oneness laws. I'm saying we have to stay within some sort of connection. But the diva said, but you're always making up a story about I shouldn't do this, I should do this. And she said, it's just like wasting your energy. And the other part of that I thought was interesting, that the divas said, humans are often just trying to create for themselves, my soul, my journey, instead of seeing, I'm doing this for the universe, I'm doing this for life, I'm doing for the universe in me. And once we say, I'm doing this for the universe within me, it's not limiting. The universe wants us to have free will. It wants us to have choice. But every time we say, I'm doing this just for me, or I'm worried about, am I going to be good enough, or am I, or what? When I or me is in the conversation, we often block ourselves from having a full engagement with life. And so if we can free ourselves up to listen to those inner voices, that inner wisdom, that intuition, the inspiration of saying, the universe in me is going to express this fully. Nobody's telling you to do anything, but it is saying is take that idea and give it the fullness of experience in so many diverse ways. And often, as we know, that things that are difficult often teach us something that we wouldn't have learned if it was easy. In other words, if you've come here to learn about love, if you were in a loving family, you'd learn nothing. But coming into a family that's difficult and maybe you don't receive that love, you learn about love in a much deeper and more compassionate way. So diversity it gives you a broad spectrum of ways in which to learn about love. What we mustn't allow ourselves to do is to get into the good and bad, the evil, the sense of I've got to do this or this. That's all man-made. So learning to listen to that inner voice, allowing ourselves to experience all that we are, is the way forward. And so the last piece I want to just add into this, and I'd heard this, was that we are in the year of the dragon, as many of you know. But the dragon is about transformation. It's also about going deep within. And this year, as we all are very aware, there is so much old energy coming to the surface. The desire, the old wars are wanting to be restarted, or the old ways of control are wanting to be reinvented. And these are old, but they're not to be taken up as this is the way it has to be. This is, again, diversity. How can we do something different? The next year is the year of the snake, which is about shedding the old skin and moving forward. So when things are coming to the surface for you, and for me, it's not to say, let's get rid of it. Oh, I must suppress it. It says, okay, it's coming up again. Let's do something different. And with that in mind, I want to say this is my penultimate podcast. As you can hear, I'm coming up for my 300th podcast, over 7 years. And I feel I need to take that space that the sun is offering at the solstice. I need to do something different. And so I'm going to stop doing the regular podcasts. I'm not going to say what I am going to be doing in terms of communicating with you, but I have always enjoyed those live sessions and will probably bring some of those forward. I will also still communicate on social media, but I need to give myself some time. I've almost done 300 seminars over those 7 years, which is pretty good going. And I want to go deeper into my research that I'm doing around my book, and I want to share that at some point, but I need that space, that time to do that. So I hope you'll join me next week for my last session, my 300th. And it feels very important that I'm doing this around this solstice. So I wish you all a wonderful solstice, a wonderful full moon in Capricorn, and a time to really enjoy life, engage with it at the fullest that you can, because that's your gift from the universe, to bring joy to yourself, to engage with others, to bring appreciation, and to recognize just how much creative power is present for us all when we get out of our own way. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Tumblr, and now playing on Amazon Music and iHeart Radio. You can also watch the archive podcast on Christine's channel, on YouTube, and now on Rumble. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.